So my name is Caitlin McConnell, and I'm here today with Mr. Jimmy Birch of Birch Funeral Homes in Ash Grove, Missouri. The date is March 21st, 2023, and this oral history is part of a collaboration between Ozarks Alive and Missouri State University Libraries. So thank you very much for your willingness to speak with me. And starting off, like I said initially, I had heard about your family's history, and I read some newspaper articles about, what was it, more than a century of your family had been involved in the business here. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about how they all got started here?
Well, the Kiblinger, of course, they were German, and they got here in 1891.
Wow.
And then they lived out here on the county line, right out here, south out here, on a farm for a year. Then they moved into town and started Mike, can you get that book out of the closet here? Just right up on right there on the left there, right up. That's the only book we've got left.
Wow. Wow.
My dad went down to my aunts, great aunts, and she had a wash tub out there, and she was burning those books.
Really?
That's the only one they could salvage.
Why did she want to burn them?
I just wanted to get rid of them.
Wow. Well, so when they were on the farm, then how did he decide to get into the...
Well, he'd been in the undertaking business before in Indiana.
Okay.
And so anyway, of course now, the undertaking business back then was a lot different than it is now. And he had the building down on Main Street down there, on the corner down there. It was a 2-story. And he had the undertaking part was upstairs. And now they didn't do any embalming or anything like that. And now on the tail end, I think he might have done something. Now he didn't do it, but he had it done. He used to collaborate with old man Thurmond over at Republic.
Really?
Yeah. Well, these motorized hearses and one thing and another were just kind of coming in, and everything. And but he was. You just think of the tightest person you ever knew in your born days, and that old man would make them look like they're handing out $100 bills on a street corner.
Well, and like you said, when they weren't doing embalming, what was more of their function back then? Because, were funerals still at home and everything at that point?
Oh, yeah. Well, they had caskets and one thing and another, and they had but they upstairs, up there, well, they had she used to make burial garments right up there, just fit them to wear right there.
Wow.
And in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And so it's always been a kind of a 24-hour deal. And that was, I'm 81 years old now. I was 14 when I made my first ambulance call.
Really?
I was 15 when I made my first death call.
Wow.
So you can do the math on how long I've been around.
Well, if you said 81 and you were 15, so that'd be about 65 years ago, so that'd be around
1955. Somewhere along there. But anyway.
Now, if you were doing a death call when you were 15 and 14 when you were doing ambulance, you weren't old enough for a license yet, were you?
Oh, no. No, but my dad's business to cure you was work. And And we at the time we were running. We'd switched over to Buicks. We ran a couple of Packards, and we'd switched over to Buicks. And boy, I mean, they had chrome on Gillette, you know, and he had lots of chrome cleaner. Man, I'm telling you, I shined on those things.
When you were talking about your ancestors, how many greats back was it who first started in the funeral business here?
How many what?
How many greats? Was it your great grandfather?
It was my dad's grandfather.
Okay, so
it was my great grandfather. Okay. Yes.
And that would have been in the late 1800s.
Yeah, he started in 1892.
1892. Okay.
He was born in 1855.
Okay.
Died in 1929.
So then, when, you said they didn't do embalming to begin with. When did that start? What?
Well, now, it a lot of it didn't start out here in the country because they didn't have electricity or anything, So they used to have to do the embalming in the home.
Wow.
But that was later on. The last person my daddy embalmed in the home was in 1939.
Wow.
But that's when they got REA, Rural Electric.
Ah.
So you could plug in embalming machines and all that kind of stuff. And but it was, I had a Oakville over there somewhere. Why, they got in there and they had trouble. Oh, and Gene, anyway, the boss kind of got it messed up, and Dad, he made him quit. And so anyway, why, it was just hotter than the hubs of Hades, and so that they were going to have it in the church. Well, of course, they could put a veil over it and make it darker where you couldn't tell. Well, somebody made a suggestion before they got to the church out there that they just move all the pews outside.
Oh.
Out there in that hot, just boiling down.
Oh.
And the old man got up there to view, and he said, "Martha, we just kept you one day too long." Oh, I mean, that Gene Brim went into orbit. Oh.
Different challenges than we often deal with today, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to tell you a couple of these things. I mean, they're not exactly, they had a person, had a nice little lady laid out over northeast of Walnut Grove, on top of one of them rocky knobs over there, and had a dirt floor. But boy, I mean, it was just kept immaculate. And he had a guy working for him, big old boy, and while Gene was talking to the family, while this kid was, or the guy was with Gene, was kind of shuffling that dirt around with his feet. And a little old kid, about 7 years old, come over there and yanked his pants, and he said, "Stop shuffling that dirt, you son of a bitch. You're getting dust in Grandma's face." Up. But I mean, that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not very nice to say, but man, alive, there's stuff happened. Dad was going to come back to Ash Grove, and they got a call over at Walnut Grove, and Gene said, "I'll take care of it." Got out there, and the old man had died up in the loft in the barn.
Oh, wow.
Like never got him out of there. But go ahead.
Well, before electricity, when you said, it was easier, maybe regulations changed and they had to do embalming in town, was it a manual process? Like, they didn't need electricity to do it?
Yeah, no, it was you had to keep pump,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so electricity changed. When did people start using like a funeral home more often than doing funerals at home?
Well, the actually that just devolved,
Okay.
and they kept doing it, and they finally built a over there, Walnut Grove over there. They actually embalmed in there in the living room.
Really?
Yeah, put a rubber sheet down.
Wow.
But after that come out of there, she had 2 or 3 colored maids over there. And I mean, they took lye soap to that thing, and I mean, they scrubbed that thing to the inch of its life. But anyway, that's just the stuff that you did. And now they didn't think anything about that. That's what you did.
Do you think that the way people see death or funerals has changed over time?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. I mean, they these folders, they give you at funerals, Mom, now that damn things are so big you can't even get them in your automobile.
So it's become a lot more complicated.
Well, it's
Money.
everything you do. But anyway, that's part of what I don't like about what's going on now.
Well, and that's a big change from like when your great-grandfather started and you had like 3 different businesses all together, because they sold furniture too, right?
Furniture. He had 2 guys making harness, and he had all kinds of stuff going on.
When did the furniture stop?
Now he sold out in 1927.
Okay.
Yeah. And but he kept this bank from going under down here.
Really? Like during the Depression, or?
They don't like to talk about that, but he loaned them enough money to get over the hump, and of course they didn't have the money to pay him, so they gave him bank stock.
Oh wow! Wow.
Sometimes you get in through the back door. He ended up being a vice president down there. He never did do any banking. Of course, they kind of thanked him for the money, and everything. But it's been a but of course the only reason we had an old man named Meitinger here, and he was he'd retired 3 times before he went to work for us, and he worked for us till he was 84 years old.
Wow.
And he helped the Birch Funeral Home here during the 1918 flu epidemic.
Wow.
And but he was one of the guys that made the first motorized ambulance call from Ash Grove to Springfield.
Wow.
In 1910.
Wow. What did he say about that? Did he have any stories that he talked about?
Well, he said he didn't go very fast.
I can imagine that.
And the roads were a little bumpy.
Yeah.
But you look back, and these guys were, they're digging, it's trying to make things better. But it's been a funerals are way too high, way too high, and but doesn't seem to be too much you can do about it. I tried everything I could, and people realize that around here, I think. But anyway, why? Anything? Well, keep going.
Well, I remember a few years ago, I take photos different places too, and I had taken a photo, I guess, of what used to be your guys' building on Main Street, because it still had Birch Funeral and Furniture and stuff like that. Well, when did you leave that building, and then did you build a funeral home elsewhere? Or?
We started out down there in 1946, and my dad did. Now this Kiblinger thing, it was still going, and then in 1950, we moved up there at 204 East Main, and that's where Morrison Lyman was, and Morrison Lyman were the ones that had the Kiblinger place. So they bought the Kiblinger place back.
Oh.
So it just kept going.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd been down here since November the 2nd, 1950.
Wow.
And but it's been I've had a nice life.
How did you decide you wanted to go into the business too, as a career?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got hanging around down there, and everything, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And now I got a brother. He turned 80, 16th of this month, and now he didn't care anything about the thing at all. And but anyway, we ran a furniture store down here for 65 years, and now my boy, he's been a furniture salesman for about 25 years, and he's made a good life out of it. And
well, and kind of off of that, so your family actually sold the funeral business for what, 20-something years? Is that what you said? And then they bought back into it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why did they decide to sell it to begin with?
Who knows? And I'll tell you something else that, boy, I'll tell you, it made my dad sick every time he thought about it. The old man Kiblinger had a horse-drawn hearse.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that thing was just slick as a mole. Well, they traded cars.
Uh-huh.
They had a garage down there, the house down there.
Uh-huh.
Well, it wasn't big enough for both of them. And they had, now this was after Mr. Kiblinger died in 29. And anyway, he came in there and he took all the bevel glass out of that thing and took a chopping axe to that thing and demolished it.
Wow.
Boy, that made my dad sick every time he thought about it.
That's terrible.
But anyway, things happen.
You said that when you were growing up and around the funeral home, you liked it. That's why you wanted to do it. What was it about it that you liked?
Well, my dad helped a lot of people. And now I'm not bragging on him, but I found a lot of this out after he was dead. I think that old man bought more turkeys down there than anybody in Ash Grove. I mean, if somebody didn't have a turkey for Thanksgiving or Christmas, they just gave him one and charged the old man for it.
Really?
Yep. And I'll tell you something. Oh, it made him so damn mad. They had the Christmas parade, and of course they always got in on the fixing the candy and all that stuff, and sacking it up, and everything. And well, they decided that instead of sacking it up or whatever, and then have them come to see Santa Claus, they just throw it at them. Well, God, it went under cars and everything else. Well, the old man went up there, and I mean, he let them have it. They said, he said, what's going on? He said, why can't you have Santa Claus up there? And all that. Well, that candy's just too expensive. And he said, if you can find enough of them numbskulls down here to fill those bags, I'll buy the candy. Now that's the way the old man was. But anyway, he had a kid after that Christmas parade one time. They had the horses in the back, so they wouldn't poop all over everything. Well, here come this kid with a riding lawnmower pulling a trailer and had a square scoop shovel, and loading all that up. The old man went out there and give him a $10 bill. That kid's eyeballs looked like
I bet.
on a plate, and he appreciated that.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could. A lot of these people, like him and other ones, of course, they could remember way back.
Yeah.
You know, when he came back here in 1931 from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and when he came back here, why, of course, it was pretty well starving out. I mean, you know, they had green beans 3 times a day, whether you wanted them or not. God, he wouldn't eat a green bean for years.
I bet.
A lot of them wouldn't eat cabbage. They wouldn't eat a lot of stuff, you know, that kept pouring it to them. But it's always been a pretty deal.
Well, back during those, you know, kind of trying financial times for people, how did they pay for funerals? Did they have funeral payment plans back then too, or how did that sort of work?
They tell you, had a guy drove up in front of the funeral home, in front of the furniture store down there, and this guy poked his head out and said, "Birch, what do you think of this?" Had a brand new pickup truck and a brand new bass boat. Well, he said, "Jack, I think that would more than pay for your mother's funeral." He burnt rubber clear to the corner, and finally his brother come in and paid it.
So I guess it's always been a challenge.
But my dad, my mother, they were married 59 years. My mother could get his heifer just like that. And he had an 80 Ford LTD, nicest looking car we ever had. And that electric box would quit and short out. Well, the motor would quit. Going down the road 60 miles an hour,
wow.
You put it up in neutral and start it, put it back in gear, take off. That did that 4 or 5 times for my dad, taking my mother to the dentist. And pull up out in front out here and let her out, you know. And she said, "Now this is how quick he could get her, if she could get him." She said, "Jim Birch," she said, "for the first time since we've been married, we're out of a car." He had that thing traded off before 9 o'clock next morning. He was down at that Ford garage down there at 7 o'clock, and brother, I mean, they was wheeling and dealing. And but anyway, that's, you know, it's just stuff like that. I mean, they got along good.
Well, after you decided you were going to do this professionally,
Yeah.
what were kind of the steps? Did you go to mortuary school after you?
I went to Drury up here for 2 years.
Okay.
And I met my wife up there. Best move I ever made. We married 57 years. She died in 21.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And but anyway, why, she was Hungarian. Tarza, Tarcza.
Wow.
And her dad was an engineer for Barnes and McDonald. Worked for him for 19 years, and they fired him. And some of the youngsters were coming up, and they had too many old guys, they thought. So anyway, why, that old man could look at read a blueprint, just like you'd read the funnies.
Really?
Yeah. And this one of them youngsters come up there and wanted to figure out the air conditioning for this 8-story building, or 8 or 10-story building, I think it was. And he just kind of handed it to him and going to take off. He said, "No, stick around." Looked at that thing. I said, well, you won't need any. I said, what do you mean I won't need any? Well, he said, son, the corners of the building like 3 feet coming together. The wind will be blowing about 60 miles an hour up there. And the next day they fired him. And the next Tuesday, he went to work for Power Electric for $300 more a month than he was getting at Burns McDonald after 19 years.
Wow.
And he retired there, and they kept his engineer's license.
Wow. Worked out well for him, I guess, in the end, although that's...
Yeah. Well, you know what they give him for a retainer?
What?
A Standard Oil credit card.
Wow.
Got his gas and oil changes and all that stuff.
Wow.
Well, save you a fortune.
Well, and so they were in Springfield when you met her, and then I know that there's a mortuary school in Kansas City. Is that
No.
where you went, or did you go somewhere
No,
else?
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, okay. And how long did that take for you to do that?
Year.
Okay. And then you just came back up here after that?
No, that's where we almost had a session. He wanted me to go to Kansas City up there to get some experience. I didn't want to go. Well, sometimes I didn't think he knew his butt from a hole in the ground. Turned out to be a genius, just like they always do. And but anyway, I got back, sent me up there, and we was going to go to work at McGillie's up there, and they was going to put in a union there and had all these picket signs and all that stuff. So he stopped by John Shields out there, Raytown out there, and he always did when he went up there. And he went in there, and John said, "What are you doing up here?" I said, "Well, sir, we're trying to find a place for him to serve his friendship." Well, he said, "Damn it, he can serve it here."
Oh.
Said, "You have him up here Thursday." Well, that was Monday. So the 11th day of April in '62, I went to work there, and I stayed till July of '66.
Wow.
I got a lot of experience. My God. See, Kansas City didn't have a morgue.
Oh.
They had funeral homes designated to get bodies off the street.
Wow.
And then the family, or the police would contact the family, and they'd contact the funeral home and tell them what they wanted. Well, then the funeral home they contacted, if it was bad, well, can you go ahead and embalm that for us? I got a lot of experience. Lots of it. Whew. They brought a guy in there one time with his brains in his hat.
Wow. Sounds awful.
Well, it was awful.
I'm assuming that it was a good thing to get to come back here.
I got a man and a woman who were not married on a motorcycle that broadsided a 18-wheeler which was making a left turn and just smeared them all over the side of it.
Oh, wow.
And then I had an old store clerk down there, an old man. Him and his wife run a kind of a corner market, you know. And some guy pulled a knife on him, and the old man pulled out a shotgun, and so had brains in the green beans and all.
Wow. Wow.
Well, but I mean, things like that happen.
Yeah.
And they most of the time they don't happen here. They happen up there. Thank goodness.
When did you come back down here?
July of 1966.
Okay.
Show me something else here. See that? That's just a Papermate pen.
What's the story behind it?
I bought it in July the 1st of 1966, and I've carried it ever since.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And but anyway, we got down here. Well, then I got drafted in October after I got here in July, and they made a tank driver out of me. I was in that Tet Offensive in '68 over there. I drove a M48A3 main battle tank for a while, and they had a personnel snafu of some kind, and but most of the time I drove a M113, which was just a recon. We had a 50 caliber on it and 260s, and but that's where I got Agent Orange and all that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I got diabetes, got Agent Orange, lost over half of my hearing, and this and that and other stuff, and I had a hell of a fall, and it knocked a lot of that stuff loose. Now I got to have oxygen all the time and everything, and but anyway, so I got all this.
Oh yeah.
From but anyway, I'm doing all right.
Well, and when did you get to come home then after your service?
Okay, I went over there on the 13th, or on the 14th of August in '67.
Okay.
And got back on the 13th of August in '68.
Wow.
And but anyway, it was quite a. But they flew me over there. They had these guys on those flights, you know. I had one right in front of me. Felt sorry for him, but I didn't really feel sorry for him. They had a bunch of these retired stewardesses, you know, and using them for that. And boy, I mean, if they went to pinching them on the rear, I mean, they just slapped the snot out of them. Oh, God, I'm telling you, it was awful. They didn't bother them very much.
I bet.
But anyway, it's a lot of people maybe don't like to hear that, but it happened.
Well, and after you got back here in '68, did you go back to working at the funeral home right away, or was there kind of a gap before you started back here?
No, I started right in.
And then from that point up until when you sold it, you worked there ever since?
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to a couple of people in the past who do funeral homes who talk about how kind of the customs around visitations and funerals have changed. You know, there used to be multiple day visitations and sometimes, and you know, what was kind of the norm when you were starting out, whether as a kid or...
Well, the norm when I was, we never heard of a visitation. All right started about, what, 30 years ago, Mike?
Yeah, probably.
Somewhere in that north. I know when I was started, they wasn't there, never even heard of one. But...
no, so all it was the funeral?
Yeah.
Okay.
But all of this stuff is just... But what they've been trying to do, all of this stuff, all of this, you know, printing up all this stuff and all of that, it just makes the funeral higher. They're charging you for all that somewhere.
Yeah.
And but anyway, why? It's been a I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Really?
Tried to help people, and but like what I told that guy the other day, I said it doesn't take much to help people. It doesn't.
Was it you and your dad who did it together for most of the time, or were there other employees and stuff that you had?
Oh, they had Gene Watts.
Mm.
He was the best kept secret in funeral service.
Really?
He didn't care about joining the association, anything. That old man was an embalmer, and of course funeral director and everything. He helped us all the time. He worked here 55 years for us.
Wow.
And but he was a bulldog. Boy, I mean, he knew all these people around here like I did.
Yeah.
Their dad did. And they thought they all looked right. I've seen him tear down people's mouth. He'd have it fixed. Wasn't right. Tear it down, start over again.
Wow.
I've seen him do that 4 and 5 times.
Wow.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Because with that sort of thing, do you have to do it really quickly after?
Well,
somebody dies?
you're better off if you can. Yes, yes. The quicker you can do it, the better off you are. But anyway, why he got? He was and he was a nice guy. His wife was a city clerk here, and had that other old man helped on that 1918 flu epidemic, you know, and everything. And then we had a couple more guys that around, thinking of ambulance business and ambulance calls and stuff. But anyway, it all worked pretty good.
Did you see a change over time between burials and cremations?
Oh yeah.
That's cremations became more common.
Oh, there wasn't a crematory. If you got somebody cremated, you had to go to Valhalla in St. Louis or Newcomers in Kansas City. There wasn't a crematory in this whole country around here.
When did that start to change?
Oh, what, 30 years ago, Mike?
Yeah. About then.
Okay.
Down here.
It was just like ambulance service. When the hospitals could get a first class claim on Medicare, they went in the ambulance business. I mean, they just bought them things like they was going out of style.
So I was going to ask you about that too, how it was running the ambulance service when you did. I mean, I assume it's kind of like I would imagine where somebody calls you and says, I've got somebody who's sick, come get them and take them to the hospital.
Yeah. Call you up, by golly, and they'd mom took an emergency call one time, and a lady having a heart attack, and said, Nina, said, we need the ambulance out here right now, and hung up.
Oh no.
But mom had done her hair for years, and she knew who it was.
Oh wow.
But they had a lot of this weird goings on. Man, I'll tell you, it was you just never quite knew what was coming next.
Well, I imagine you have to be ready for anything at all times.
Oh yeah, 24/7.
Yeah.
Had an old woman over grove over there. He said, I see you over here. I don't ever see you doing too much. And I said, well, we've got a furniture store over here. And I said, well, a funeral home and everything. I said, did you realize that most people die between midnight and 5 o'clock in the morning, don't you? I said, next time I'm working, I'll call you. Some nights I wish I had them.
Well, and kind of, when you'd get a call in the middle of the night or whenever, what was kind of the procedure? Would you get dressed a certain way or go get them or, then take them straight to the funeral home after that? Or was there sort of a steps that you went through?
Yeah. No, well, now we didn't wear suits and ties. And, we go out there and go out and get them at home or whatever. bring them in here and embalm them. And of course, then we had to go to get permission to embalm them after that, and all that. And but the more the government gets involved in it, the worse it gets.
Did you ever see people in recent years that just didn't want to be embalmed but were still
Oh
buried?
yeah. Oh, they were around here a long time ago. They didn't want to be embalmed. And oh yeah, so we wouldn't embalm them, but we did recommend that they bury them in a rather quick order.
I can imagine. But even in more recent years, it was that way too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's interesting reading about kind of history always seems to repeat itself, and I read about people who want more natural.
Well, they're having
burials.
all this green burial and all that stuff. That's just like them idiots on all this green stuff. By golly, that camel jockey from somewhere, by God, come in here. A bartender knows all about climate change. But, all that stuff. They got these people running around. They don't know whether they know anything or not.
Times certainly change a lot all the time, don't they?
Yes, they do. And you don't know who's doing it. I mean, But anyway, that's the way it is. And then it'll just keep right on going.
Well, and when did you decide to sell the funeral home?
Well, I got Mike. Come in here, man. Now, this is my son-in-law, Mike Lewis.
Nice to officially meet you.
Well, he's got an embalmer's license and everything, and but I think they decided. I didn't decide that. They decided that we ought to just sell it, which I think was correct.
What was kind of the timeline for all this? I know it just happened recently, but
Yes.
was it in the works for a while? Or?
No.
Okay.
It was, he took the fall back in June of this past year, and with his health declining, he was needing more and more care.
Yeah.
And I tried to split time between him and the funeral home and realized
Can't do both.
I can't do
No,
both effectively.
no.
Yeah.
I
But
can't
anyway,
give the
so-
families at the funeral home what they need, and I couldn't give him what he needed. And it kind of got down to a choice between my family or other family.
Yeah.
These folks over here run this other funeral home. I've known them. I've known his dad for 40 years, and they're nice people. So they were good people to sell to, and so they'll take care of our stuff.
Well, and I was going to ask, selling, does that mean people who have pre-played plans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what we wanted taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to honor all of our prearranged funerals.
That's great.
Yeah. So we got everything
Some of the
lined up.
equipment.
And but anyway, while they've been and
Casey and Rachel are very nice people. They
Well, that's,
and actually it's more of a merger than a buyout. It's
yeah.
he's just not taking our name
yeah. That's kind of a question I had that
because we sold to a colleague, not a competitor.
yeah. Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
in small towns, I know not Ash Grove, but in general, politics can be weird sometimes. But
Oh,
it sounds
yeah.
like this was a good relationship and everything, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Because actually, if he needs help getting the body dressed or casketed, he'll call over here. I'll go.
Yeah. Well, he helped make a death call the other morning.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a
Collaboration more so.
collaboration of yes.
Sure.
Well, and I'm jumping back and forth, and I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
I just keep thinking of new questions. I read somewhere, so at one point you guys had the funeral home here, and then did you also have one in Everton?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How was that a long-lived operation, or was that just for a few years?
It was every casket salesman and embalming fluid salesman told my dad he wouldn't last 30 minutes down there.
So you proved him wrong.
Lasted 35 years,
Oh,
and we helped them.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And so 35 years, about when did it close?
It started in 1972,
Okay.
and about 2008
Yeah.
or 9, somewhere along there.
Did you just decide that?
No, the building went fluey.
There was a heavy snowstorm and ice storm, and it took out the roof rafters,
Yeah,
kicked the corner of the building out.
correct. Yeah, so we just
That's a good reason to maybe not be there anymore.
Yeah.
Mother Nature kind
But-
of took care of the building for us.
And it did. But I'll tell you right now, we did a nice business down there. It wasn't too many.
No.
I think the most we ever did down there in a year was 13. But you know,
Still a service.
might as well be there somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the guy. That's some of them guys. Boy, I mean, they thought the old man, by golly, lost his notchstick. But in fact, I thought he'd lost his notchstick on a lot of stuff. But brother, I'll tell you right now, he knew what was going on. Batesville Casket Company. They called on one in the town, and that if you weren't the one they called on, why you got talked about.
Really?
Well, we weren't the one they called on, but they was hunting money from the other guy over here. Now, not these people. It's in there now, and but anyway, while this salesman, they were supposed to go to calling on us. Well, my dad went to 50 conventions in a row. I mean, didn't miss a one.
Wow.
He liked those, and he knew the old man Hillenbrand that was head of that Batesville Casket Company, owned the thing, and he went up there and Boston and said, "Say, your salesman hadn't called on me yet." About 10 days later, he came in the side door of that furniture store down there. And he said, "Man, if you can't come in the front door like the white people, just keep on trucking." Yeah. That's the way it was. But anyway, that's...
Well, and I was going to say, I didn't realize that you were in the business too. I should have asked if you guys wanted to do it together.
That's okay. No, this is it's his business and his history.
Well,
No.
Did you marry into the family and
Yes.
get involved?
Married my daughter. Boy, I thank God for that every day.
Were you from here originally too?
No.
I'm originally from St. Louis.
God,
okay.
he's just remote from this place as a frog is feathers.
I met his daughter at Northeast Missouri State Truman
Okay.
up in Kirksville.
And so when did you become involved down here then? How many years ago?
Well, 2002 or...
I went to mortuary school 95 through 98.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 98, 99 came down here and
Okay. Well, so
split time with him and one of the mortuary services in Springfield
Okay.
to make sure I could get all my cases in that I needed.
well, it's amazing how long the family has continued here. I mean, in all these different phases, which I guess you may have said and I already forgot. When did the furniture store close? Because that is kind of this whole side parallel business to all
Well, what, 2000 and about, what, 8 or 9, sometime about the
Okay.
time the
Wow. What haven't I asked about that you would want to talk about with regards to any of this?
God, I don't know. I mean, look, my ego just goes to about the second floor. I mean, I don't have to have a breakdown and a champagne party, but I gotta tell what a good guy I am. That's horse manure. And I was just an old country undertaker. If it needed doing, I did it. And I've known those people for years, and if I could help them, I did. Sometimes when I couldn't help them, I did it anyway. And but I was always proud of the way my dad helped people. The lady from Everett come in here. Her husband died, and I mean, man, they poor people didn't have a thing. And she come in there with an old insurance policy, $1,000. The old man turned that thing in, and it was good. He didn't say a word. He just got the thing, and took that $1,000 in cash out there, and give it to her like scared her to death.
Wow. When you're talking about, funerals becoming so expensive, in today's world, has this you see it as even more of a bigger challenge for people to pay for funerals than it used to be?
Oh yeah.
Even the customers that you were dealing with, like,
yeah,
it's too bad.
Well, I kept my prices low. A lot of them thought it was too low, but anyway, and it was probably. But anyway, I'm not I'm not a thrill seeker. I try to help people. That's what I want to try to do.
Well, this has been wonderful. I love visiting with you, and I don't think I need to ask you anything else. I don't want to take up more of your time, but I've really enjoyed this.
Anytime you want to come back, do it.